every 18 minutes, right now, somewhere in China, a brand new industrial robot is powered on. I want you to really hold on to that thought for a second, because that's not some futuristic metaphor or a projection for 2050. That is a stark, cold open reality of the world we're living in today.
Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving deep into a battle that's running 24/7 on unseen factory floors. Just look at 2024 alone. The installation gap between the US and China was absolutely staggering. China installed nearly 300,000 industrial robots. That is literally more than every other country on Earth combined. And the United States? The very place that invented the modern industrial robot, we installed just over 34,000. That's almost a 10-to-1 difference, and it's setting the stage for a geopolitical shift that's going to affect all of us. So let's unpack this industrial robot chasm and figure out exactly what's driving this massive 5 times gap. If we look at the raw data on traditional factory floors, the tension kind of builds itself because the gap isn't just sitting there, it's widening. According to the International Federation of Robotics, China is currently operating an unbelievable stock of over 2 million industrial robots. 2 million. That's an overwhelming, indisputable 5x lead over the US, which is hovering right around 394,000 units. And while China's installation curve is just rocketing upward, America's installations actually dropped by nearly 10% last year. Now, a gap like that doesn't just happen by accident. If we look back at 2014, imported robots completely dominated the Chinese market. But then, in December 2021, Beijing rolled out this incredibly deliberate, heavily subsidized national robotics strategy. Basically, they ran the exact same playbook they used to dominate solar panels and EVs. 5-year plans, massive state subsidies, tax breaks, the whole shebang. Fast forward to the end of 2024, and domestic Chinese manufacturers control 57% of their own market. They're not just buying these things anymore, they're the ones building them. But honestly, the traditional robotic arm bolted to the floor is practically old news at this point. The real race, the one that's going to define the next decade, is the battle for humanoid machines. We're talking about machines shaped exactly like us, built to walk on 2 legs and navigate spaces designed for humans. And we really need to look at the harsh realities of the market here, because the contrast is wild. On one side, you've got America's heavy hitter, Tesla's Optimus. Elon Musk has literally called it their most important long-term product. Tesla is actively retooling factory lines for it, but as of right now, 0 commercial sales with an estimated future price tag somewhere around $20,000 to $30,000. On the flip side, look at China's Unitree. They aren't just messing around with prototypes. They've actually shipped over 5,500 humanoids in a single year, and you can go buy one right now for about $16,000. What's absolutely crazy here is the sheer dominance of Chinese manufacturers when it comes to actual physical shipments. We are looking at 85 to 90% of all global humanoid robot shipments originating in China. Think about that. This goes way beyond flashy stage demos or concept videos. These are real, physical machines getting boxed up, shipped out, and put to work in warehouses right now, totally outpacing the rest of the world. And to validate just how massive this shift in manufacturing power really is, you don't even have to dig that deep. Even Elon Musk conceded this exact point at a global economic forum. He said, and I quote, "China is the toughest competition we face. Outside of China, there are no serious rivals." That's not marketing hype. That is a remarkably objective acknowledgement from the absolute top of the American tech industry about what's actually happening on the ground.
Okay, so how exactly are they pulling this off? Why does China have such an insane advantage when it comes to the cost of hardware?
To understand this, we have to look at the economics of building a robotic body. There's a Morgan Stanley cost analysis that paints a really clear picture here. A robot's most expensive components are its actuators. You can think of these as the motorized muscles in its joints. Well, if you try to build a humanoid without using Chinese-made parts, the cost of those actuators triples. The cost of chips and other hardware, that doubles. The math alone makes competing purely on hardware price almost impossible if you don't have access to their supply chain. And here is the secret sauce for how they do it. They don't just assemble the robots, they control the entire ecosystem right in their own backyard. First, they localize the rare earth magnets. Then, they build the batteries and the sensors right down the street. Next, they assemble those complex actuators entirely in-house. When you control every single step of the supply chain within a tiny geographic radius, you aren't paying to ship parts across oceans. That gives Chinese makers an absolutely insurmountable advantage on cost, letting them dramatically slash the final price tag of the robot. But listen, definitely do not count America out of this fight, because while China is clearly winning the hardware and volume game, the US is winding up for a massive counterpunch, betting everything on the brain of the machine. The US strategy is all about artificial intelligence. Take Figure AI, for example. This is a brilliant showcase of America's counter strategy. They're an American robotics startup, and they already have their humanoids operating on real-world BMW production lines down in South Carolina. They're billing by the hour, doing actual factory work, and the company is pushing a valuation of nearly $40 billion. And the crazy part? They aren't doing this by making the cheapest robot. They're doing it by supplying legacy automators with unbelievably sophisticated software.
And that right there is the American edge. Startups like Figure AI run on custom AI models. Think of it like a digital brain. It allows a robot to look at a totally unfamiliar object, say a really weirdly shaped piece of scrap metal, and figure out how to pick it up entirely on its own. No explicit, line-by-line manual coding required. That is a huge contrast to the majority of Chinese humanoids today, which, for the most part, still require engineers to manually program them task by task.
So this brings us to the multi-trillion-dollar question defining the entire industry right now. We essentially have two completely opposing strategies going head-to-head. You've got the Chinese strategy, cheap and many, laser-focused on hardware dominance, supply chains, and pure volume, versus the American strategy, smart and few, focusing intensely on software, neural networks, and building a better robotic brain. So who wins? Is it the cheapest body or the smartest brain? Let's take a step back for a second. Why should we care? And what are the actual stakes for the global economy? Because guys, this goes so much further than just who builds the best car or sorts boxes the fastest. The stakes are absolute. The winner of this race doesn't just score some lucrative factory contracts. Yes, these bipedal machines are going to completely redefine modern factories, but they're also going to expand into our warehouses, our hospitals, and honestly, eventually our homes. The country that perfects this tech first gets to dictate the standard operating systems of our future. They get to set the hardware and software standards that the entire rest of the world is just going to have to buy into. Which leaves us with a pretty heavy, lingering question. Who really wins when the machines take over? Because make no mistake, this robotics war, it isn't some sci-fi movie pitch for a distant future. It's already happening 24 hours a day on factory floors most of us will never even see. Thanks for hanging out with me for this explainer, and I will leave you to ponder that exact question.